maybe it provides a model then for personalized medicine challenge in the economic model, right?
It absolutely will. Absolutely will.
Yeah.
Let me take a crack at the educational question. Although it's a different world in the university, we're certainly committed and involved in it because that's our feed stream. If we're not going to graduate children, young adults who are math, science literate, then the state doesn't need an Institute of Technology. So it's enlightened self-interest. I think we all acknowledge, on a personal level, every one of my kids' teachers are great. They're hard workers. They are dedicated and they're knowledgeable. But they are what they are. They know what they know. And they are a product of a 30-year process in which science and math has not been highly valued in the educational system. And they can only teach what they personally know. And that has always been sort of the obstacle, right? Is how do you teach something where the primary caregiver in a K through 12 environment, it's that singular teacher for the most part, doesn't have the basic skill set and knowledge to make it interesting and understanding, which in my generation was naturally in the news every night, so you had a driver. Too often we think we can just give them a course on a disc, right? We can have some other influence in, and I think that does not properly acknowledge the importance and the role of the teacher as what I like to call systems integrator, if I can be overly engineering analytic about it. What we need to be able to do is give them content that they can adapt and they can use. And if there's an additional value add, it's to be able to customize the content based on individual learning preferences and styles, because now the classrooms are not tracked as they were in my day, where they culled the kids out from first grade on into ones that were perceived to be the Ivy League destined, and the ones who back then were perhaps not even college oriented, now would be state school, and those who would be getting vocational training. The beauty is that now in the world of advanced information technology, we really can have our cake and eat it too. We can, as educational providers at higher levels, create content in smaller nuggets. And there's a world of stuff out there to be mined already in the public, not in the public domain, but commercially created on the Science Channel, the Discovery Channel, the Animal Planet, the Green Channel. Those are things that can be reduced into small nuggets that, with the proper orchestration, can be used to help a teacher figure out how to connect that to the curricular objectives, which then connect to the New Jersey AST test to make it specific to the ones we all know. Right now, the whole formula funding is tied to the school's accomplishment against the state standardized test. So we need to be clever and figure out how, in fact, to chain this sort of learning experience to drive against the curricular goals that are going to be measured in the AST test. And I don't think that's an impossible challenge. It just takes some coordination and some attention to making this a priority in the state, so that we don't do, as too often we do, teach kids test-taking tricks instead of mastery of content. And I think that's been your observation.
Yeah, I'd just like to make one other point. PTC Therapeutics is actually on our radar because my children carry the nonsense mutation.
They do?
For,
good.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
good.
we're going to be
Hopeful.
evaluated in like 2 months, so we're really excited about
Good
that.
luck.
So that's medical innovation at its
Yes, it
prime.
is. That company almost went out of business twice in the last 10 years, too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you and good luck. This lady back here.
Why is that a comment?
I just want to say very briefly that there can be changes both at the college and high school level. My daughter teaches high school in Philadelphia, high school biology, and it's really attracting people who can teach at that level into that area. So a lot of more effort should be brought, bringing the proper teachers in, and it could also be brought in at this level where my daughter's not a career teacher. I mean, she's going to get her PhD and so on forth, but she's devoting 5 years of her life teaching biology, and I think for 5 years the kids are really benefiting from her, because and this is the kind of thing we need innovation in our teaching as well as this. At Rutgers we have we recently adopted a completely new curriculum where we're forcing every student who goes to Rutgers to actually take serious science. I mean, for about 30 years, all the curriculum in the universities went so that if you wanted to do humanities, you didn't need to take any science. Now, the old-style liberal arts education is coming back, and people have to take at least some science, so that you don't end up being just a humanitarian or a scientist and nothing in between. And so I believe that it's really important for us to stop teaching to the standardized tests. And I am particularly aggravated when I go to places like Hong Kong and Japan, where they are number 1 or number 2 or number 3, and the U.S. is number 48 in science. in the United States. I mean, how far can we drop before we say that we need to look and change the system? We're literally at the bottom of the barrel in terms of science teaching in the world. They're doing it better in Turkey than we're doing it in the U.S.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Deborah Halpern with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in New Jersey, and I'm really glad that I was able to attend today. It's been very exciting and very educational. And just 2 points for following through on. First, it's been touched upon briefly with clinical trials. When all obstacles have been addressed in terms of funding and legal issues and so forth for new and exciting possible treatments, there still is a need to enroll patients in clinical trials, and the society has been trying to educate patients that we see and interact with about the importance of clinical trials, but there's a lot of fears when people hear the word clinical trials. They have all these myths and inaccurate information, so I would ask that this be part of whatever is going to go forward, that this is very much involved with anything that is done in planning. And second, to make sure that all areas, all opportunities for medical education are really being fully addressed and looked at. We may have a shortage of doctors in this country, and it is extremely hard and very difficult to get into medical school. That part is fine with me personally. But what I'm also hearing is that there's a lack of spaces, that they really are keeping the numbers of enrollees down, and the cost is terribly prohibitive. And for people to graduate medical school with outrageous debt, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, is not going to encourage our best and our most talented students to consider this as a career option if they don't have the personal funding. So I just bring this up to add into the many other important areas that have been discussed and hopefully will be continued to be studied and implemented in the future. And thank you for having this wonderful program.
Thank you very much. This young lady right here in the second row, and then this lady, and then we're going to close.
Debbie Clementi from GlaxoSmithKline. First of all, thank you. There's been many, many topics that I think a lot of us will be discussing for many months to come. One of the things that you mentioned is innovation. I'd like to know, where is the incentive for innovation when any of these medicines that do get to market, an insurance company is denying and denying and denying when there's a generic available, and it doesn't matter how incrementally better the new medicine is, it's always the generic that is preferred.
Anybody want to dive on that one?
Well, it's the problem that I was talking about. It's the commodity turning healthcare into a
Lowest
commodity.
denominator.
Yeah, it's the lowest denominator, and it's work like Congressman Gebhardt is doing in trying to get people to consumers like you and I to pay attention to the fact that that has a deleterious effect. It's easy to say, well, we've got to contain costs, and it's fashionable now to demonize the health insurers, but it's really being driven by the elements of reform. And we have to ensure that in those elements of reform there is room for that type of innovation. And right now we're not paying attention to it, so that's why this is so critical right now.